Welcome, travelers. You are listening to Side Quest.
That's our first side quest.
That's it. That's the jingle.
That, as with most side quests, will detract from the main narrative, or be even cooler than what we were supposed to be doing in the first place.
It will either be much better and more interesting, or we will all just be waiting while you and I go on like a shopping trip through town, and we're just like, can we please get back to stopping the like evil wizard or whatever. All right, this side quest, we're talking about alignments in 5th edition. Onog, the Half-Orc Barbarian, is joining me. I'm Thomas, the Human Wizard. Human Wizard? I've changed classes now.
You've multi-classed.
No, I've just changed.
You just decided to rewrite. You re-rolled your character.
Thomas the Human Bard retired. I'm Thomas the Human Wizard, his son.
His son, who looks exactly like him.
No, I'm Thomas the Human Bard, and we had just been chatting about alignment the other day, and we thought we would make an episode about it. Mm-hmm. So, Onog, what about alignment made you want to discuss it on the podcast?
Well, I think we should
introduce
alignment. We should introduce the idea of alignment.
That's ridiculous.
For those who don't know. But it was something that you mentioned in, I think it was our episode 0. Or was it episode 1 or episode 0?
Episode 1.
It was episode 1 where
resurrection rules.
Where there are resurrection rules that like forcibly change your alignment. Mm-hmm. And it's just kind of brought forward in my mind this idea that I've been kind of stewing on, I guess, I don't know, about how alignment is treated in 5th edition compared to previous editions of D&D. Because while like we've said in our intros before, a good majority of us have only been introduced to D&D in 5th edition.
Yeah,
I've played before in 3.5, 4th edition a little bit, and Pathfinder, and in each of those, I think alignment is treated a little bit differently even than it is now. And I just kind of wanted to just have a little afternoon chat with you about that.
Oh, afternoon cup of tea here in the tavern.
Yeah.
Everyone else is out adventuring.
Yeah. So basically what alignment is it's, you know, if you've ever heard someone describe something, it's like, oh, that's so chaotic evil, or that's very lawful evil, or things like that, or
neutral evil.
Very neutral.
The 3 alignments.
The 3 alignments, all the evils.
All the evil ones.
No, like, or that's so chaotic good of you. You know, you'll probably have seen memes where someone commits a blatant crime, but for the seeming good of those around them, and they describe it as
what? I'm chaotic good. It fits my character.
Yeah. But basically, it is a way to describe personalities. It's kind of shorthand. To a certain degree, there are 9 total alignments, each with 3 variables on 2 different axes. There's lawful, neutral, and chaotic, and then there's good, there's good, neutral, and then evil. And each of these combines together to make a different sort of personality. So there's lawful good, someone who puts the needs of others before their own while also maintaining the laws of the world around them.
Social structures.
Yeah, social structures. And not even
necessarily the
honestly,
laws.
It can even be broken down even beyond that, where it's a lawful good person can break the law because they have their own code of conduct or something like that.
Yeah, they might be breaking the law of the land, but because they're following a higher law that they feel supersedes that law, which is the law that they're always following. Whereas a chaotic good person generally speaking, feel as if they are the ends of the law. Like they decide what ends up being worth following and worth not following. They might decide that this law is broken, so there's no reason to follow it because I've decided that it is. I see that it's broken, so I don't feel obligated anymore to follow these rules. At the end of the day, they're sort of the arbiter of their own morality in that sense. Their own law morality. Not morality, because if they're good, they're still looking out for the benefit of others over themselves, generally speaking.
But like a good quick example of someone who is chaotic good, often is described as chaotic good, is Robin Hood. Someone who actively breaks the law to steal money from the rich and give to the poor.
To steal the rich people.
I'm sure he's done a kidnapping racket now. Okay. I'm sure he has stolen a rich person.
He steals the rich and he gives them to the poor for the poor to beat.
It just sends them right back. But and we could get into a whole other argument where it's like, actually, Robin Hood is lawful good because he views the laws that, you know, the sheriff of Nottingham is putting in place as unjust, and so he must break those laws to uphold true justice, you know, things like that.
Yeah, there's even some early renditions of Robin Hood as he combats man's moral failings with like broken laws by following like God's laws. So in that sense you could almost deem him as lawful good because he follows these like Christian virtues that he's saying like we should be giving to the poor, we should be helping those in need, and to him those laws trump these other laws, but that's still lawful by following like a law system of some kind. I think a lot of the time lawful and chaotic has to do with your ability to respect a structure above you, meaning that somebody else can tell you something is right or wrong, and lawful people generally will have somebody that they trust to do that, whereas chaotic people, they are the highest law in the land as to what is lawful and what is
you can't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. And then there's good and evil, which I've kind of broken down, and other people can have different interpretations of this. As, you know, good means that you put the needs of others before your own. Neutral is it could go either way, kind of a thing. And evil is you put your wants before the needs of others. That's just kind of its base fundamentalist, because, you know, when people think about lawful evil, they think about this man cackling maniacally in his tower as he just shoots peasants for no reasons. And it's that's not what real evil is. Real evil is, oh, I found this coin purse on the ground and it seems to hold a lot of money. I'm not going to tell anyone about this, and I'm just going to collect this.
Or even like, and I see somebody who might be looking for this.
Yeah, you see a very scared woman who with 3 children looking around for a coin purse.
And instead of speaking up, you just don't speak up. It doesn't have to be actively. You then go kill that woman. Yeah. It's just you just choose that your own sake is more important than that other person's.
Yeah, and so I would argue that a lot of quote-unquote murder hobo parties who claim to be good and just people are actually just evil characters. They don't know it yet.
I saw a very fun, I wish I could source this. Maybe I'll put it in the description if I could find it. Somebody put out a brief plot hook that was, your party has heard about a band of pillagers and murderers roaming the countryside, and they decide that they'll hunt for them. But when they go to one of the places where those people were reported to have been, it's a town they were at earlier, and everyone flees from them because your party is the roaming, pillaging murderers, and you were hunting yourselves the whole time.
I would love to do that in a party with a party that deserves it.
Yeah. Are we the baddies?
Oh wait! Oh gosh, we're the bad guys. We often have a phrase that we use a lot to kind of talk about alignment, and there's 2 key different kinds of alignment. There's descriptive alignment, where you use it to describe yourself. It's like, well, how would you describe Thomas the Bard / Wizard?
Thomas the Bard. I mean, my wizarding days are behind me now.
Okay.
I believe he's very lawful good. Yeah.
And that's just a quick hand to describe how he believes in upholding the law. He believes in putting other people before him. I have seen multiple situations where Thomas has stared down the maw of a mighty beast that could kill him instantly and is in fact killing the rest of his party in that moment.
But actively killing Thomas as well.
actively killing him. But he stands in front of his allies to protect them and to do something to fend off the beast, where he could have just run away.
But like you're talking about with descriptive, I don't base my choices off of the concept of lawful good. I've come to realize that the way that he acts would best be defined as lawful good.
Yeah, you use it as a way to describe. Like, Onog's alignment has changed throughout the various campaigns that I've played with him, because I think his outlook on life changes throughout these campaigns. He started off as more of a chaotic neutral kind of character who didn't really care about good or evil and just hated and bristled against authority and anyone telling him what to do. And honestly, he's kind of shifted more towards a neutral good kind of aspect of things, where he believes in putting the needs of others before himself, and he doesn't believe in oppression, but he also believes that hey, rules also have a place, kind of thing. As both he and I have gotten older, we've kind of matured into that.
Yeah.
But and then there's descriptive alignment, and then there's prescriptive alignment, where instead of just describing how your character is, you are faceting them to these aspects of alignment. So, for instance, you have that lawful neutral character. Well, your lawful neutral character would never break the law, right? Says someone else telling you how to behave.
Yeah, they're prescribing you a course of action based on your
on the alignment you chose randomly because you didn't know who your character was, kind of a thing. And this is it's situations like this where I get into a little bit of a problem with how alignment was treated before, and I think alignment is treated very well in 5th edition as opposed to previous editions, but it also runs into a few archaic issues even in 5th edition that are holdovers from the previous ways alignment has worked.
Yeah.
So, for instance, one of my biggest bristling points, I guess, against alignment was in 3.5 when I was choosing to join a campaign, and I was reading up on 3.5. My friend let me borrow his books, and I came across all these different limitations, where it was just rogues can be whatever, these guys can be whatever, but paladins, they can only be lawful good, except for the evil paladins, who can only be lawful evil.
Yeah.
And it's just... And I guess that makes sense, especially considering the source material of what paladins are.
Yeah.
That they are these holy knights on a crusade, and that they would all be lawful good or lawful evil because they have either broken the laws and strayed against the path to become wicked, or they have maintained the just course. But then you think about it's like, well, the Crusaders, they were just made out of normal knights. They each had all different reasons they were there.
Each Crusader was made out of at least 3 normal knights.
The Crusades were made out of normal knights. But yeah, each of them individually had different reasons why they were there. Some of them believed in the cause. Okay.
I'm just picturing 3 knights in a trench coat.
Yes, hello.
We are a Crusader. Hello.
But you know what I'm getting at. Like, some of them were just like, well, the Baron said I needed to go on a crusade, or my wife can't pay taxes, and so we will go to prison. Stuff like that. So there can be different kinds of paladins. And another thing too, various. I won't get into the nitty gritty too much, but like barbarians, they also had an alignment stipulation. You could not be lawful anything. If you believed in law at all, you couldn't be a barbarian through their raw nature. They all believed this. And I think that way of thinking kind of limited choices.
Yeah, it limited the diversity of characters you would see. Because a lot of people say, like, well, I just can't imagine how a barbarian could be lawful. That seems to be at odds. But I think the correct way of thinking about it is to then broaden your understanding of what a barbarian can be. And that opens up the game to more intriguing characters where you are a lawful barbarian, and what does that mean? What society must you be from to create that kind of a person? Or what aspects of you fulfill the barbarian qualities while still maintaining a lawful aspect?
What, like for instance, Thomas is a bard.
Yeah.
And bards are often believed to just be, charlatans, constantly seducing the enemy instead of fighting them, things like that. But that is not in any way how Thomas behaves.
No.
And so, back to this lawful barbarian. Like when I was told you can't make a lawful barbarian, I was just thinking, okay. Like, but what about the old wise, clan leader or something? The
tribal elder.
The tribal elder who has established this society for his people and is still a mighty warrior. Is he just a fighter, or is he a barbarian? What is what those things should be able to exist. And so we come to 5th edition, where each race kind of has suggested alignment. If you look in the player's handbook, it'll say like most tieflings are probably chaotic due to the nature of how they are raised in the society they have been described in, kind of a thing like that.
And that does also tie into the interesting facet of D&D 5th edition is a mechanical tool set, but it also gives it to you with a pre-built world that you're welcome to use if you'd like, where in the like stock D&D world, tieflings are chaotic because they're always on the fringe of society and they're always like looked down upon, so they can't really be in positions of like lawful power very often. But that's just because that's how it is in the Forgotten Realms, which is the official D&D setting. And D&D, as we talk about on this podcast, is full of homebrew and things that people create themselves. And the further you start straying from that, the more you realize, well, I guess tieflings don't have to be chaotic, because in the world that we're playing in, the majority of people are tieflings. We just thought that'd be an interesting world to use. And so that would change definitely what their suggested alignment might be. If it was the majority of all of them and they're all chaotic, that's a pretty different looking world.
That's going to be a different time.
Now I just want to play in like a tiefling Mad Max universe.
Where everyone's just crazy.
Not crazy, but like anarchy reigns, you know?
It's just, no, there are no rules. The only rule is don't get caught.
The rule is take what power you can.
Yeah. But gone are the days of a class, even paladins don't have alignment rules anymore. They have oath rules, which are very interesting in how you can interpret them.
I really like how they handle the oaths in 5th edition.
And if you break your oath, that can have different consequences as a paladin. But you can be a chaotic good vengeance paladin who's all about hunting down those who have besmirched him or his god, or those who are lesser than them, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And so they hunt, they seek vengeance upon those people. Or a neutral good Oath of the Ancients paladin who's all about nature and seeing it blossom, but they don't care about the laws of man. That's not anything that matters to them.
Yeah.
And so this loosening of alignment, and I think when Wizards of the Coast made 5th edition, they made that distinctive choice to get rid of those aspects because those were restrictions, and that this will allow more people to enjoy more aspects of these things. Except every once in a while where forced alignment rears its ugly head. More often than not, this shows up in the monster manual, where it just says, these dragons are evil, these dragons are good, and there's often a higher
societal like cause to it?
Not even a societal cause, but there's like for instance, it says all angels are lawful good, but like because angels are literally beings of lawful goodness, their alignment is lawful good. That kind of makes sense, except for the situations where you have angels who have strayed from that and have fallen. Devils are always lawful evil. Well, what about the ones that have strayed from that and have become demon, things like that,
or risen?
But I always found it a big problem for me, especially in the dragons section, because dragons have their own gods as well. There are two different kinds of dragons. There are the chromatic dragons who worship the evil many-headed Tiamat, who is a god and devil in her own right, and then there are the metallic dragons worship
Bahamut, yeah.
And that's why they're the alignments that they are.
Metallic boys are the good ones.
Metallic dragons are always good.
Gold, silver, bronze dragons, copper dragons.
Yeah, and chromatic dragons are always evil. And I always think, it's like, and what about the ones that aren't, though? Like, I can understand you, and it's sort of systemic racism. Kind of saying, like, well, all goblins are chaotic evil. All red dragons are chaotic evil. And it's just kind of like, but even in the most simplistic of D&D worlds, it's never as simple as that. And I understand, like, in a game where all you are doing is go to orc, smash orc in face, take orc's money, go buy pretty thing. That's all you need. But I always seek to make a more complicated narrative than that.
Yeah.
And so it was I actually stopped listening or watching Critical Role for a very long time after a certain event took place. So there were these red elemental dragon eggs, and the party, they do what's right, even if they are kind of being scumbags about it. But they will most characters in that party will make the right decision anyways. And then they just, while they were fighting this legendary dragon, and eventually the fight gets complicated with the inclusion of another dragon, they also start smashing these eggs, and I was furious. Because, first of all, who doesn't want to see a cool elemental-infused red dragon? But second of all, they're just killing these baby dragons because, well, red dragons are evil.
So we should murder
So we should murder these babies.
Yeah.
And I stopped listening to the show for a long time because I couldn't get over the fact that they didn't even have, like, a discussion about it. They just started killing the babies. And it's like, yes, in the rules of D&D, it says red dragons are chaotic evil or whatever they are. But that doesn't give the chance for growth and new life.
Yeah.
Basically, just when you narrow the field, like, what does a lawful good red dragon look like? What can that be? What amazing, especially with these preconceived notions that everyone has, that chaotic evil is the only thing red dragons ever do. And then you have a lawful good red dragon who's just like, hey guys, don't take any of my stuff. That's called stealing, instead of just immediately trying to eat them.
We're coming in to take your hoard. Well, I worked hard for this hoard. I had a job. How about you leave my savings alone, okay? This is for my children. Please don't murder them as babies.
Yes, please don't stab my adorable red dragon elemental babies.
Yeah. I think that we have an example of, in one of our campaigns, we, through a series of circumstances, found ourselves in possession of an owlbear egg. It was no one's fault. Thomas wasn't involved, obviously. It was
directly Thomas's fault.
Thomas accidentally may have crashed into an owlbear nest and scared the parents away and realized they would never come back for the egg and decided to raise it himself. Perhaps, but that's rumors. But the interesting thing, I think, about the owlbear is that in the D&D monster manual for 5th edition, owlbears are classified as large monstrosities unaligned. And not only I think is unaligned worth bringing up as far as alignment is concerned, but it never said owlbears are good. It says they're unaligned, right? They're not intelligent enough to actively choose moral decisions. But on the next page from the owlbear is another monster that's described as a large aberration, and it has neutral alignment. It is true neutral. So sometimes monsters have alignments given to them, and other times, specifically often when they're not intelligent enough, they're unaligned. And that owlbear ended up growing up to be sort of, a classic D&D party mascot where you have it with you. It doesn't ever really do all that much, but it's always around and you're thinking about it, and it has opportunities to be cute. And then it kind of shifted because it interacted with a magical object. Do you want to recount the story of that?
Yeah, basically, the professor, as he was named.
Yes, the owlbear was named the professor.
The professor basically drank from the waters of a magical cup that let you, or a magical bowl that let you see into the future, let you, see that. And instead of,
if I remember correctly, he didn't just drink from it, he drank all of it.
Yeah, right.
And then it replenished itself afterward.
And it replenished itself eventually, as magical items are wont to do. But he drank it, and it just due to the innate arcane magic nature of owlbears in and of themselves, combining with that divine magic of foresight and future seeing, it kind of infused into his persona and abilities a little bit. So every once in a while, this adorable little owlbear cub would speak with the voice of a god and give forth a prophecy to the party while they were not doing anything.
He would give forth an omen.
Yeah, and or every once in a while, the owlbear would speak in plain English and just say, "Hey, don't go that way. There's a rock trap," and things like that.
Uh-huh.
And it became a very interesting thing, because then I started playing around with different ideas with this bear, and then this bear, as a result of this exposure, became much more intelligent and was able to interact with the party on a much more personal basis rather than it's just a bear with an owl face and it's cute.
Yeah. But I think that if the owlbear in the monster manual had been chaotic evil aligned, it wouldn't have changed what occurred there. Because I think letting that limit you, like you've been talking about with these, like the dragons and things like that, takes away some opportunities for really interesting and unique characters that can arise, where all other owlbears might be monsters that can't reason well enough to understand that like murder is wrong. But this owlbear has become smart enough to understand it and has risen above the morals of its peers and now makes moral choices. I think that's really interesting to free up that alignment on a lot of these monsters. And sure, when they're not intelligent enough, they can stay unaligned. But sometimes it is interesting to see what a good dragon looks like, or an evil metallic dragon. There's a couple of magic items, I think, in the Dungeon Master's Guide. I think the Book of Vile Darkness?
Yeah, the Book of Vile Darkness.
And the Book of Exalted Deeds?
Yeah, those each can only be used by their respective alignments. If an evil person specifically, not just a non-good, but an evil person tries to use the Book of Exalted Deeds, they immediately take an unsavable amount of radiant damage that they cannot prevent in any way. They just get vaporized by the book, which I think is a very cool flavor idea.
It's a cool flavor idea, and it works as long as the thing that's using it is a monster that has a given alignment in the DMG that you are, or in the monster manual that you are following.
Yeah.
The real question, though, ends up with what we've talked about between descriptive and prescriptive, where one of the party members, who maybe up until this point has thought of themselves as neutral evil or something like that, goes to use the book, but there's now a weird situation where there's room for an argument with the DM on maybe I've actually moved to true neutral now over the course of this campaign, and since the action's based on that state, it suddenly becomes prescriptive. Like, this action will change based on what you define as your alignment as, and that's a weird situation to be in, because a lot of times players want to avoid bad things happening to their characters. They want to avoid punishments. So you'll be like, no, I'm good now. And is it the DM's right to say whether you are or not good? Or is it the players? Is it the sum of their actions that defines that? Is that decided by the DM? How does that exactly work? And those questions, like in previous editions, were much simpler to answer because they were like, no, you just are this thing. You just are lawful good because you're a paladin, so like don't even worry about it.
I think Critical Role, they never really openly discussed this, at least on the show. They might have done it in a after show talk kind of thing, or in an extraneous video I haven't seen. But there was a very special situation in which Vex, the character Vex, has been constantly it's the much maligned situation where she steals a broom of flying from a guest character, and that guest character came in with a broom of flying, and then she tricks that character, not the player knew exactly what was going on, but tricks that character into thinking the broom was destroyed. Sorry, you gotta go now. And everyone got very mad at Laura Bailey for that, I think for a little bit of a time, but eventually, as with all outrages, they got over it and went back to being adults. But it was after that situation that Matt, the dungeon master, pulled her aside and said, "You're no longer chaotic good. Because you consistently keep stealing from people and you keep putting your needs above other people's wants and needs, you are now chaotic neutral." And it took her several sessions to get back to being chaotic good. And I think it needs to be, if you want alignment to play into situations like that, it needs to be a mix of both. You need to decide how your character behaves, but you need to recognize a lawful good character isn't going to go around chopping people's heads off for no reason. Now, that being said, no one is allowed to say, wait, you're lawful good. You can't go around chopping people's heads off for no reason. But you also need to recognize that if you want to remain lawful good or truly be able to call yourself lawful good, you can't just go chop those people's heads off. And things like that.
Yeah, I think there is some personal accountability involved of saying, like, if we're talking about being descriptive, like, being honest with yourself about what your character is. Because I think everyone wants their character generally to fit into one thing that they conceived of, but then they consistently choose different actions. You need to be honest about, is that what you're playing? Are you being lawful good, or are you being lawful neutral, or are you being lawful evil? Like, how are you actually acting? Mm-hmm. Because you can upfront say, oh yes, I am a lawful good paladin, and then murder innocent people. And you can keep telling yourself you're lawful good, but I don't think that that's going to be the case anymore.
And that kind of comes back around to our discussion of the murder hobo party, air quotes. Where it's just all these people can be saying whatever they want. If they're just going from town to town, killing anything that gets in their way without asking questions, and just taking the money for themselves and using it to buy shiny things, are they good people? You know?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I also wanted to touch on a little bit the idea of neutrality in the alignment system. That a lot of people like to just use neutrality as a simple slider between good and evil. So you're not that good, but you're not that evil. I guess you're neutral. But I think that, like, you can play it that way. But I think that there is an interesting case to be made for neutrality as a choice, to say, I am neutral good, or I am lawful neutral because I do not specifically look out for my well-being over others, but I also don't specifically look out for others' well-being. I specifically, as a choice, try to find a neutral best solution that will be beneficial for the most people. There's a lot of philosophy that goes into the concept of living a neutral life, and saying who has the right to decide what is going to be best for others. So can you even act in this case if you are going to say you're a neutral party? Are you allowed to say that's the right thing or wrong thing to do? Thomas, for a long time, was lawful neutral, I think, in his previous life before I started playing him, like his backstory, because he believed that killing was so wrong that he removed himself entirely from it. And even when other people were suffering, he would just say, I do not have the right to choose who lives and who dies, so I won't help. And that's very much neutral. Mm-hmm. But he then, I think, ended up acting in a way I would describe more as lawful good, when he started saying, I will choose not to kill, but I will also choose to actively preserve life. Mm-hmm. Which is different than just, like, he decided that everyone deserves to live, not that he can't decide who lives and who dies. He decided that everyone deserves to keep living and have another chance. Mm-hmm. And that moved him into more of what I would describe as a lawful good state. But he's a couple of bad days away from being maybe lawful neutral again, describing him as that, you know, like that's the precipice he always stands on, is his moral quandaries of, is it right to kill or is it right to purposefully save? Which of those is one of those worse or better than the other one? Yeah. Definitely. Good talk.
Yeah, I think that's about all I wanted to talk about.
Yeah. There's a great article I would recommend all the listeners check out. It's on theangrygm.com. It's a blog by a guy named The Angry GM. Great content producer, writes a lot of really interesting D&D and also general RPG stuff. And it's called Alignment in D&D 5e. And it goes into how it's sort of become vestigial in the actual mechanics of the game. And he talks about his answers and his ideas for that. So I'd highly recommend that. That's something that I think sparked some of my opinions on the subject as well. Did you have one you wanted to share?
Yeah. One of my favorite YouTube channels is made by, it's just Matthew Colville and Colville. We can link it in the description. We'll put it in the description. But he has a few videos talking about alignment where he goes into a lot of what we talked about here, and he's also been playing D&D a lot longer than us, and so he has a very different, not a very different perspective, but a little bit of a different perspective, but he touches on a lot of the same issues.
Yeah, I think his perspective is very much colored by how much of the game he's played and for how long. Definitely, he's got a lot of things that we wouldn't even think to talk about because they come from older editions of the game and things like that.
Well, I think one of the things he mentions too is that alignment isn't even in the first version of D&D. That was something people added later.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah. So definitely. Go check that out.
Yeah, go check them out. So yeah, Angry GM and Matt Colville. We'll put the links to those in the description. And yeah, thanks for joining us on our side quest. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, and nobody even died.